Hi everyone, in this lecture we will learn more about conditional statements, that is if, else if and else blocks. So we will start with a very simple example. Given a number, you want to check if this number is divisible by 2, right? So let's first focus on only on this part. So that you can check very easily. You can put a if block, if followed by round brackets, and here you will add the condition. If this condition is true, you will enter inside the block. The block is opened and closed by the curly brackets, and anything that you inside the block will be part of the if block. So you can say, okay, cout n is divisible by 2, and you are still inside the if block. Okay, this is also inside the if block, right? So after the curly brackets, the if block ends. But suppose this condition is not true. You enter number 7, 7 mod 2 is 1, 1 is not equal to 0. So you will come into else block. So here you will write those instructions which you want to execute when this condition is not true. So maybe you can say cout, it's not divisible, and we are inside the else block. Okay, so as of now let's run only this much part of the code and we will see what to do next. So let me say, okay, dot slash if else. So let me add a number 6. So it says 6 is divisible by 2 and we are inside the if block. And if I give 7, it's not divisible by 2 and we are in the else block. Suppose we also want to check the divisibility by 3, right? So the first thing that I can do is I can add a if block again, and this time I can say if n is divisible by 3, then I will say, okay, cout n is divisible by 3 and so on. So that's it, right? But there is a potential problem in this case, right? If you want to check divisibility by 3, you could have done this thing, but let's see what is the problem here. So let me give a number 9. Okay, so let's build the code and let me give a number 9 now. It says it is divisible by 3 and we are inside the if block. This looks that the program is correct, but it is not. So suppose if I give you a number 8 in this case, right? So what do you expect? The ideally we should expect that n is divisible by 2. This should be the output, right? But let's see. It says 8 is divisible by 2. We are in the if block, but it also says it's not divisible and we are in the else block, which means this else is also executed. The reason why this happens is because the if else block is independent of the above else block, right? This if else block is independent of the above if block, right? So this check is made independently, and if this condition is not true or true, it doesn't matter, right? It will come to this if block. Then this if block, if this condition is false, it will come to this else block. So in our case, we are executing the first block, then it is checking for the second block, which is false, hence it executes the third block, which is the else block, right? So if you want that only one of the blocks should be executed, the way to do it is you should have a else if block. So if this condition is true, this block will not be executed even if this condition is true, right? Even if n mod 3 is divisible by 0, this block is not executed. So you can use else if block, okay, if you want only one of the blocks is executed, right? And the way to have the way to order these blocks is the first block is always a if block, then you can have multiple else if blocks, right? And followed by a else block, which is also optional, right? So what will happen in this case is, suppose I give a number 2 and give a number 4. So it says 4 is divisible by 2 and we are in the if block, it looks fine. Suppose I give a number 6 now. So 6 is divisible by 2 and 6 is also divisible by 3, but we are only getting 6 is divisible by 2. Why this happens, right? This happens because only one of the blocks is executed, right? So in our case, when you are giving 6 as an input, you can see this condition is true, so only this block is executed. And if all other blocks, right, all other blocks below the block which is executed are skipped, which means even if this condition is true, this block will be skipped because you have already executed this block, right? So this is the control flow when you're using the else if block. So how do we correct our program? If we want that if our number should be divisible by 2, it should be divisible by 3, and we want to print if it is divisible by both. So one way is you start with the if block and you check for both. If n is divisible by 2 and n is divisible by 3, so you can say it is divisible by 2 and 3. So you are in the if block, and here you can say you are in the else if block, and you can add one more else if block here which says if number is divisible by 2, then you will execute this statement. Okay, so let me just copy this. N is divisible by 2, and you are in else if first block and else if second block. And finally, if none of these conditions is true, you will execute the else block. So when you are using if with else if, this whole becomes a single flow, which means only one of these blocks will be executed. Okay, and this is how you can add multiple else if blocks inside a C++ program, right? And if this condition is false and if this condition is true, then these won't be executed in any case, either the condition is true or false, right? So let me see if else. Let me give the number as 3, so it says it is divisible by 3. Let me give the number as 4, it says it's divisible by 4. Let me say the number is 6, it says it is divisible by both 2 and 3, and this output comes from the if block. Let me give a number 7, so it says it's not divisible, we are in the else block. So I hope you understood the control flow and conditional statements in C++. That's all for this video.